What's going on, everybody? Joshua Cook back here. Another week of the St. Pius 10 football show with Greg Cranfill, the man, the myth, the legend himself. St. Pius coming off a huge win against St. John the 23rd, 46-2 last week. They move to 3-2 on the season, 1-1 in district play. They slide up into fourth place in district play right now. Coach, just getting that first district win must be nice. Talk about that. Just getting that first district win of the season.
Yeah, the thing about it is just taking that next step. And I think that's what the kids realized more so after probably the Concordia game, that looking too far ahead of you can actually bite you right in the rear end. Not to say that we were, it's just the fact of more of a process-oriented mentality that we've had. And it helped us out on a successful Friday night. And that's what we've got to understand.
Your Raising Cane's Caniac Offensive Player of the Week, Cale Skinner, 6-10 passing, 69 yards, 2 touchdowns. He rushed 7 times for 79 yards, so a nice balanced attack from him. What did you see from your QB1?
Yeah, I was real pleased with what Cale had done this week. He kind of got banged up in the Concordian Lutheran game. But Cale's a guy that understands the importance of meetings and mental reps when it comes to practice. And I think he and Bryce both did a great job of managing the game. We tried a little something different with them this week, and I think both of them had great games. And Cale showed out, some of the things that he is capable of doing. And we're real proud of the progress that he is making.
And then your Raising Cane's Caniac Defensive Player of the Week, Travis Pesic, 4 solo tackles, 5 assists, 3 tackles for loss. So nice game for him across the board.
Absolutely. Travis is one of those guys that grabs his hard hat and his lunch pail every day, and just comes out. He's not a huge kid from an outside perspective, but what he brings to the table from his heart with his courage is immeasurable. Travis is not afraid to stick his neck right in the middle of something, stick his head right there and make plays. And I think Friday was a great example of some of the things that he's capable of doing.
And then your final 2 awards of the week, the Special Teams Player of the Week goes to Tanner Hansen, and Scout Team Player of the Week goes Adrian Navarez.
Yeah, Tanner's one of those guys that works his tail off, at kicking and does everything that we've asked him to in this program. And then Adrian Narvaez is a JV center that comes and runs our number 2 reps at varsity center, and has done nothing but just impress all of his coaches around him with his work ethic and just how hard he comes to practice every day. So we're real proud of both of those guys as well.
So that's a look at last week, and of course I know the page turns very quickly for you come Friday night into Saturday morning, and your next one is Antonia and Prep, 3-2 team, both of you 3-2. They're 1-0 in district. It seems like a pretty big game. I know every game's big, but as far as the late playoff seeding and stuff, do you start looking – I know it's more about y'all and what y'all can do, but as the season goes, do you start looking at that jostling of playoff spots and stuff, or do you just worry about winning the next game and then everything will take care of itself down the road?
Yeah, I think it would be considered like looking at the leaderboard at a professional golf tournament. Anyone says that they don't probably is not telling the complete truth, So you do look at it, but I would say you look at it but don't pay it any attention, just because of the fact that every one of these, especially with injuries at our level, a 4-0 team can very quickly switch and completely change who they are as the dynamics of the makeup of that team, I guess is a better way to say it. So you look at it, you just don't pay it any attention, because the only thing you can control is what happens in that locker room and what happens on that field. And so that's your focus every day.
And I know you mentioned injuries. Your team has kind of gotten bit by the injury bug a little bit this season. How do you deal with this part of it where, I talked to some athletic trainers in the last week, and they're on the front lines of dealing with these injuries. And I said to one of them, I said, really, you're an athletic trainer, but then also you're kind of a part counselor too, because you're dealing with the kid that's hurt. how do you deal with, these kids want to come back as fast as they can. They want to get back on the field. How do you deal with talking to a young man when they're hurt and you have to kind of keep explaining to them, okay, your time will come to get back, but we have to make sure you are 100%, because I know for you, safety is 100% the thing. You're not going to put a kid back on the field that's not ready to go back on the field.
Absolutely. And I think it's just a lot at the end of the tunnel philosophy that we try to use with our kids. That we always tell them that sports and football will never define who they are as people. So their identity is not based solely on what they do in between those lines on Friday night. So what they can do in that locker room to help their teammates and preparation for week in and week out type of situations, that they are still as important part of this process as any of them. And then basically focusing their attention on what's important to them, and that's rehabbing or even possibly just resting in some situations to get them back to where then they can get back on the field as quick as they can. And in some cases, there are situations where they're not going to come back. The injury is too major for them to come back. But we talk about what's next for them, whether it be the next sport, whether it be, where they're going to in college or whatever. So we try to keep the focus on them and what they need to do to help just take that next step and understanding that football, basketball, baseball, whatever it is, it's a lot of fun to play, but it will never define who these kids are. And so that's what we focus our attention on.
Yeah, and I always think that's interesting too, because you look at, I think we always see the player and like how good they are athletically on the field. They're amazing at catching the ball, running the ball, throwing the ball, tackling, whatever it may be. For me, sometimes I learn more about a player when they are hurt and they are on the sideline. They're just wearing a jersey. Are they engaged with their teammates? Are they communicating? Are they cheering them on? Are they by the coaches? Or are they sitting over on the end of the bench,
absolutely,
kind of pouting because they can't play?
Right.
And, it's one of those things that maybe for you too, do you learn more about a player, not their physical ability, but their character and kind of their inner part of the kind of teammate they are when they are hurt and they are put in that situation where I want you to still be a leader, but you need to lead in a different way?
Absolutely. And I think it's funny, the UConn girls basketball coach, I can't remember his last name. It's one of those ones that are hard to.
Oh, yeah, Gino Ariyama.
So Gino talks about something. I heard him talk about it years ago, and then I found myself doing it, and I can't stop doing it, if that makes sense. One of the 15 times that I rewind to play, when all my coaches are like, Coach, what are we doing, man? It's like the 15th time we've watched that play. I watch the sidelines. I want to see who's engaged in what's going on in out on the field. And a lot of that has to do with the fact of an injured guy that is the day he comes back or the day he's cleared, is he still mentally ready to do the things that he needs to do? Or has he disconnected himself because he's injured and is not going to be, ready to jump back in it? I think that's what you see when it comes to the NFL and major college sports. Guys that are injured that step back in are ready to do the things that they need to do after an injury because they always stayed mentally engaged. And so I promise you, one of the things that I look at is I watch that sideline to see not just the injured guys, but the guys that are suited up, who's engaged. And it gives me some confidence to know, remember, I can't see any of that stuff that's happening behind me. It gives me the confidence to know that if I need them, that I can call their number.
Yeah, it's always interesting to watch the sideline, or even like when when I'm at a game, Coach Cranfill flying out of the screen.
Golly, man, I had to sneeze so bad. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when I'm walking up and down the sideline because I'm filming. I go from end zone to end zone because of which way the offense is going. And when I walk past the back of the sideline, no matter how the game's going, I'm always kind of listening. I'm always kind of watching to see how people are reacting and what the mood of the team is. And how do you – part of that too is it's a question for you, and I know a lot of that's happening behind you, and it goes on the coaches. But there's so many ebbs and flows to a game,
Sure.
right? We talked about this even at the very beginning of the season for the show. We were talking about the Texas Tech game, the Texas Tech Houston game, how Texas Tech came out and was playing so bad at the beginning of the game,
Right,
and
right.
halftime, and the fans are all so upset, and then they come back and play better and win the game. How do you deal with that? The emotion of like keeping – do you lean on your senior leaders to keep that positive attitude on the sideline where it doesn't like just dip and everybody's like down on themselves, or who do you put that on?
Right. And I think it comes down philosophically to the coach. If you are a up-tempo guy that wants to snap the ball 70 or 80 times a game, I think it may be different. For us, I was taught a long time ago that in order to win football games, give yourself a chance in the fourth quarter to win the football game. And so no matter what happens early in that game, as long as your football team understands, just give us a shot in the fourth quarter. And that could be as close as a 14-point football game. Because a 14-point football game in the fourth quarter is one touchdown, one stop, and then you've got the opportunity. You got the ball back in your hands with an opportunity to tie or even win the game. And I think as long as your kids understand philosophically that that's what you're doing, getting down 15, 20, 28 points early in a game, you don't feel like you're out of the fight because of the fact that it's just taking one bite at a time to get back into that situation. Our philosophy, never too high, never too low. So even when things are going good, I don't want to see a bunch of cheering and celebrating, because so many different things, like you said, so many different things can happen throughout the course of a game. So we want to stay just as consistent as we possibly can, both physically and mentally, knowing that we're only as good as our next snap. Even if you played as poorly as you possibly can, AKA Texas Tech that first half, you come back and you make adjustments, and then you give yourself a chance to win. We grade everything that we do with a plus or a minus. And so what we'll talk about is one play, one plus. That's the mentality that you have. And if you screw up and make a minus, shake it off, step up and run to the next situation. And your main focus after that is the next plus that you could possibly have. And as long as that's what we're doing, we feel like our football team has a chance to be successful.
Yeah, I think every coach in America after, I don't remember what Super Bowl it was, maybe 50, it might have been 51, I think, because it was here. The New England Patriots, I think, were down 28-7 in the third quarter, and there was probably a lot of people that were like, this is over. Yeah. It's a 21-point game. The Atlanta Falcons are about to win the Super Bowl, and we watch the Patriots just chip and chip and chip away, and Tom Brady and that crew have the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. Sure. And I think that speaks to Purdy. It's the mental side of it. They didn't check out. They just chipped away at it, and they made history. It further proving Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time.
And a lot of it comes back, and this is one of those things as a head coach you know that you have the responsibility of. And in some cases, you're like, you can second guess and question yourself out the wazoo. So imagine this. You're up 28-7. Okay? Do you, A, continue the game plan that you have, running the risk of throwing the ball down the field and turning the ball over, or do you go conservative, try to run as much clock, knowing that maybe you can't run the football like you want to because now they know that you're not going to be as balanced. So as the head coach, you sit there and go, well, we're just going to continue doing what we do. We threw it around the first half and got 28, so we're going to throw it around the second half. And then all of a sudden you throw a pick. And now it's 28-14. You're like, nope, we're going to keep doing it. And then you go 3 and out, throwing the ball. No time is run off the clock. And then now all of a sudden it's 28-21. So you can see as a head coach, philosophically, you've got to decide based on that game who you are, you know. And you go back to that Super Bowl. I mean, it just so happens that in those situations that when the tide turns, sometimes it's hard to get back to where you were. And I think that's exactly what you saw. And Big momentum is a huge part of any sport that you play. And I think football is a prime example of that. You know, one screw up offensively, and then the defense has the ball in the plus territory, or one bad foul up with the special teams, and all of a sudden the ball is placed advantageously for the other team. And it goes back to New England's mentality was just give our football team a chance in the fourth quarter. They know that there's no play in their book that they can score 14 points or 21 points, but they can score 7 at a time as much as they can. So it goes back to the one play, one plus, trying to get into a situation in which you have a chance to win. So it's easy on the other side when you're down 28-7, just to up tempo, to put the foot down, because you are in a situation in which there's nothing left for us to do but to push forward. But on the other side of that, it often gets to where no lead is a safe lead. Let's just put it that way. When you allow your team to take a deep breath and step back, because when that happens, be careful. So that's why you stay on full tilt all the time as a coaching staff, just to keep your guys focused on what's important right now.
Yeah, as many coaches have told me, that game is not over until it says triple zeros and they've turned the scoreboard off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, I used to coach basketball back in the day, and I've talked to many way more intelligent and better basketball coaches than I am. And I would ask, what's a safe lead for you and when? You know, is a 20-point lead going into the fourth quarter a safe lead? They're like, absolutely not. 20 points is 7 possessions. That's 7 misses for us and 7 threes for the other team. And now you're down 1. You know, and it happens that fast in basketball, and it happens that fast in football. Go back and look at some of those situations in which you've been up 21 points. The other team has scored, onside kick, got it, scored again, and then you're sitting there. It went from a 21-point game to a 7-point game, and you don't even have the ball. Your offense has not even touched the ball one time, you know. So it's a situation in which if you ever take a step back and just relax, then a lot of the great teams in our league, as well as around the state, they'll put a hurting on you real quick. Yeah.
That's very true. That's some inside knowledge. That's the old saying, and put the pedal to the floor and keep it there until it's over.
That's it, man.
Don't let up.
That's
Because
exactly
I've seen some
right.
coaches, like teams will get up and they'll start, and on the sideline they'll start celebrating and stuff, and the coach is looking and going, "What are you celebrating?
Yeah.
We have like 10 minutes left in this game." Like,
Absolutely.
you know, and it's one of those things that they have to watch. The final thing I want to close on with you this week is I know you've been in the coaching biz for a bit. You came in as a young coach, and now you're head coach. When you get young coaches in, and I know right now in high school sports, you know, coaches, there's a lot of programs that are still looking for coaches. They need coaches.
Right.
They want young coaches to come in. Even Texas High School Coaches Association is saying, hey, we need more young coaches to come in and coach. When you get a young coach in, what do you really want to like develop them on? Like, what's your biggest thing that you focus on with a young coach to help develop them as a young coach, A, and then B, see if you can make them a long-term coach as far as they fall in love with coaching and they want to do this for a long career?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me is allowing coaches the opportunity to understand everything that goes in, or everything that's involved in coaching. It's not about Friday nights. I mean, that's when we get to go enjoy and do what we, you know, what we work on every day, no different than the kids. But the process that it takes in order to be a successful coach, and I think that's where we try to spend more time. You know, it's checking grades on these kids. It's counseling these kids that come into that locker room, you know, with a sad face on it. It's hugging these kids' necks and asking them things that are going on in their life so that they know that they have people on their side. And then it's accountability too. You know, you can get close to your kids and feel like that you have that positive relationship with them, and then sometimes feel sorry for them, you know, on a side where it comes down to when you're grading them, you don't want to hurt their feelings. But I do believe that regardless of whether you're a young coach or you're a young kid, that you want honesty, that you want people to tell you, you know, when you've screwed up or when you've done something right. That way you can build on it, you know. And I'm honest with my guys, especially all my coaches. I tell them I've worked for 25 years in this business. I've worked for 15 different head coaches. And I think out of each one of those head coaches, there are things that I've grabbed and put in my basket and said, this is exactly how I'm going to handle that situation. And then there are times when I go, I will never do it that way. And I think that's okay for a young coach. Don't try to be me, because, gosh, we don't need another Greg Cranfill in this world. You know, don't try to be me. Be you and learn from all the great coaches that you've been around, and build yourself an idea of who you want to become as a head coach. I think a lot of times it's hard for young coaches to understand too. I know you're looking at one as a young coach. When I would have an idea, I thought it was the best idea in the whole wide world. And if we didn't do this, what my idea was, that's silly. That's not what we should be doing. What I want to do. And I think as a young coach, I had worked for some great people that kind of taught me, Greg, we want you to interject with all these great ideas, but you've got to understand you only know 20% of the whole pie, or you only know 30% of the whole pie, whereas a head coach has got the 100% and has got to take into consideration all of the things that goes on. And as you step up the ladder from an assistant coach to a coordinator, that 20% of the pie now became 50% of the pie. And then as an assistant head coach or even higher than that, then you start taking bigger chunks of that pie in order to understand that the responsibility, that you've got more responsibility as you grow. And I think that's one of the things that we teach those younger coaches. We've got a lot of great coaches on staff right now. Lot of great coaches on staff, and these kids at St. Pius are blessed because of that. And so what I do as a head coach is just try to grow and manage those coaches and help them and give them the tools that they need in order to be successful at their position groups. It's fun. It's fun when you get younger coaches in here that are eager and want to learn. But there's also some responsibility that comes with doing what we do, and we have to hold each other accountable, not me on them, but them on me as well. And I think that's one of the most interesting things that we do as coaches.
Yeah, it's all about fostering those, relationships and growing and building and learning. And, there's a reason coaches go to coaching school and go to all these
Sure.
seminars, and read these books. And, that you mentioned about coaches, like you said, I don't want you to be the next Greg Cranfill. I want you to be the next you. And
Right.
I think, like in college football, for example, everybody always looks whenever Nick Saban faces one of his former assistants, like
Right.
a Kirby Smart or one of those guys, they're like, well, what did Nick Saban teach him? Well, Nick Saban didn't want Kirby Smart to be the next Nick Saban.
Right.
He
right.
wanted him to be Kirby Smart. But everyone thinks they're going to be the next Nick Saban.
Right.
And that's the interesting part about that.
And I think here's a great example. Like for me, my son and wife are convinced that I bark a bunch, so that's okay to be compared to a mad dog, I guess, but they're convinced that I bark. But one of the things that I tell them from an outside perspective, if all you see is the bark, but never see what goes on in the locker room, that never goes on and sees the relationship that we have with these kids, that when they hear that bark, they know, all right, he's trying to make me a better football player, as opposed to someone that just hears the bark going, oh, why is he raising his voice at those kids? It's a situation, and some people are different. I had the ability to go watch June Jones coach while he was the head coach at SMU, and Josh never. I mean, it was as calm and somber and just the Hawaiian mode of just everything's okay, everything is quite okay. And I was looking around going, man, I feel like I'm out of place, because I've been around other programs when it's as loud and not violent, but loud and just high tempoed as you could possibly be. But just to understand that there are different coaches and there are different styles. And for each of us, we have to find a fit at where we belong and then run with it. And St. Pius is one of those great schools that you go back and look at historically, all the great coaches that have come through here. They are all very, very different. But the one thing that remains constant is our kids, and just how our kids at St. Pius have always come with teach me and coach me, and we'll do the best that we can. And that's testament to the legacy that is St. Pius, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, and people that might be in the stands for the first time and they see you on the sideline and I guess the quote-unquote bark that's happening, they need to go check out the Twitter account and see you going out to a rugby game last spring to watch your guys play a rugby match and to be there supporting them in their other sport. And that is what I will close that on, is don't just judge by what you see on the sideline on Friday night. Go follow Greg Cranfill on Twitter and go see all the awesome things that he does to go out and support his guys in rugby and baseball and lacrosse and all the other great sports they play at St. Pius X football. So that is what we will close this week's show on. Antonian Prep is up this week for the St. Pius X Panthers. They are 3-2 on the season. We are back every single Wednesday at noon with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Greg Cranfill. Coach, appreciate the time. We will see you back here same time next week.
Go Panthers.